What's up, skate fam? Welcome to the next episode of Deez Skates. I'm your host, David Lolliette, and I hope that you're all doing well in this uncomfortable quarantine. I hope that you're using your time well and still making sure to stay somewhat fit at least and keeping skates on your feet. Many of us are pretty stressed that we can't skate outside very much, that we can't spend time with our skate family, and I think that it's important to note that we're all lucky to live in a time like now. There's really no better time to go through a pandemic like we're all seeing than right now, where we can socially distance ourselves from each other and we can still have a moderate level of contact through social media. We obviously have lots of entertainment. You have an entire internet at your disposal and millions of videos on YouTube that you could be watching. So I want to thank you for checking out my video. In this episode, we are going to be discussing some of the questions that I get on my channel. I want to answer a few questions and extend the mantle to some of my viewers to ask me more questions. So if you enjoy this video, make sure that you give it a thumbs up and you subscribe, and drop your own question for me down in the comments section below. So I actually got turned on to this little vlog idea of answering viewers' questions by a friend of mine who goes by the YouTube handle Aussie Inline Skater. If you haven't checked his channel out or you haven't heard of him, I highly recommend looking into his work on YouTube, especially if you're an inline skater. I know that I specialize kind of all over the place, not really in any specific type of skating, but in many. But the Aussie Inline Skater, I mean, it's in his name, so he is an inline skater. So our first question here comes from Take It or Leave It 304. And Take It or Leave It's question is, so would you say it's easier to learn in quads or inlines? And I have a video that sort of attempts to answer this question. I get this question all the time, and there's really, in my opinion, no good answer for it. And the reason I say that is because it really depends on the person. I could tell you that it was easier for me to learn quads, but that's really because I learned quads, and I learned quads first, and I spent years and years in them before I ever got the chance to touch inline or ice skating. So I can't really say if I would have learned the same if I had started out in another type of skate. And I know plenty of skaters that start out in inlines and then they try to skate quads and they think that quads are much more difficult and weird, and vice versa. There are tons of quad skaters that are under the impression that they can't learn inline skating. So I would say that if you have to ask this question, the best thing that you can do is find some way or another where you can try both of them and spend maybe 2 or 3 hours in each type of skate and decide for yourself which one fits better for you. And there's a lot of fashion that goes along with each medium, I guess. You have, these different scenes where there are like the Moxie girls and the Chicks and Bowls movement and roller derby in the quad skating world. And if those are movements that you're interested in and you want to get involved in, then picking up quad roller skating might be the best thing for you to do, because of course you're going to feel more motivated whenever you have something drawing you in, because in reality we can learn, I believe anyway, that we can learn either. So I'll also link my video on this topic that is specific to this topic in the description below, and you can feel free to check that out. I gave maybe a better compiled answer for it, and some tips on how you can decide which you want to get into. The next question comes from Yeetus Deletus. That's a clever name, by the way. So Yeetus says, can you do jumps and spins in inlines? I'm also into figure skating, and I don't think I can stand not skating anymore. So Yeetus, I totally understand where you're coming from. We are all stuck in the house right now, and all the rinks are closed, and we can't skate with our friends, and we can't ice skate, that's killing me. I actually got a brand new pair of figure skates that I was in the process of breaking in, and really, really enjoying them. And then this virus took over, and it kind of threw some wrenches in my plans. So now, to answer your question, I would say that yes, you can do jumps and spins in inlines. However, the level of control that you're going to get without the toe pick is not going to be the same. So if you pick up a pair of fitness skates or slalom or freestyle skates, you're not going to be able to do double and triple jumps, and you're not going to be able to spin on one foot like you can, or at the level you can, in a pair of ice figure skates. They do make inline figure skates that have like a toe plug that's supposed to mimic a toe pick, and the frames and wheels are rockered to imitate the ice figure skate. So it may feel very similar, but of course you're still going to have some learning curves to get over. But I would say yes, if you are dying without skating, then this is your chance to get your hands on something new and learn something new that will keep your abilities well honed, so that when you get back on the ice, you don't feel like you haven't skated in 3 or 4 months. And because none of us know how long this is going to last, right? So you don't want to deprive yourself of skating just because you feel like you're not going to get the exact same experience from a pair of inline skates. I encourage you to try inlines or quads if that's what you're interested in, to try a roller style skate so that you can keep your abilities honed and learn a new skill, learn some new abilities. The next question here comes from Paul Arnold. Paul has been around for a few months on the channel. I've noticed him commenting on some of my videos quite a bit. So Paul, I just want to say thanks for the support. Now, Paul's question is, he says, hey, I just discovered your channel and I love it. Curious how you developed your style of skating. So my style of skating, I guess, is kind of like any style, it's a blend of everything that I know. So I started quad skating when I was very, very young. My mom put me in quad roller skates when I was about 2 years old, shortly after I learned to walk. And, she was a skater, and her mom would not let her skate until she got old enough to drive herself to the rink. So she always hated that when she started, she was in her mid to late teens, and there were tons of people who she saw that were younger than her that were already light years ahead of her. So she decided, whenever I have a kid, I'm going to make my kid learn to skate as soon as possible. So basically, like I was put in skates not long after I was born, and I did quad roller skating from the earliest time that I can remember until probably around high school. And then in high school, I started to get into, skateboarding and a little bit of inline skating. And then in my, my late teens, I kind of slacked off, and then I started quad skating some more in my early 20s. And then I was, doing ice skating whenever I was in college in my early and mid 20s, because it was always, it was something that I always wanted to do. And I was going to college in North Texas, and there were ice rinks not far from me, so I would take the bus to the ice rinks and I would take ice skating lessons. And so my style is kind of, I guess it's just a blend of everything that I do. And to a newcomer, it probably looks fairly unique because there aren't a whole lot of skaters that do all of these different styles of skating that I do on the regular. I think most skaters consider themselves quad skaters or inline skaters or hockey players or figure skaters, and I don't consider myself any of that. I consider myself just a skater, right? I'm not a style, I am a skater. So that's just some background on how I developed my style. And the next question comes from Milner Hockey. Milner says, where did you play hockey? So I never actually really played very much hockey. I did some inline hockey with friends, and there was like a small league, I guess, when I was a kid in the local rink that did some roller hockey, like quad skate roller hockey, but it wasn't a really popular sport in East Texas, so I never had the opportunity to really get into it. I have tried my hand at a little bit of stick handling and shooting and street hockey on my own as I've gotten older, but I think my interest in hockey is really more along the lines of learning the agility in skates that hockey players have. So my experience with hockey is very limited, honestly. The next question comes from Art V. Art says, nice skating. Why don't you ever showcase your Helios anymore? Well, Art, I don't skate in my Helios very much anymore because I'm really partial to my hardcore Evos. I like the freestyle skate a lot better, and I feel like I'm, in inlines anyway, I feel like I'm developing my style more around freestyle skating and less around specifically hockey skating. And the Helios, they're great skates and they have really awesome power transfer, but at the same time they're not very comfortable to spend 3 or 4 hours skating through the city, in my opinion. So I don't feel like they handle the road nearly as well as a boot with a proper liner, even a built-in liner like the hardcore Evo. So I don't enjoy my skating experience for long periods of time when I use my Helios. And also, I feel like the Helios, I have the right size as far as length goes, but the right skate is a little too narrow for my foot. And I've spent probably 100 hours or more in them, and I've heat molded them, and I think that they've broken in as much as they can break in. So I have not been able to get quite as comfortable of an experience as I would like. So I kind of gave up on them, if we're being honest. I hope I get this name right. The next question comes from Lavina Elive. I think that's right. Lavina says, are tri-skates or four-wheel inline skates recommended for city skating? Well, Lavina, I think that that's a good question, and that's another one of those that kind of falls into the answer category where I'm going to tell you it really depends on you. It's going to depend on what you want to be doing in the city. I think that you can very effectively use both skates, tri-skates or four wheels. And the larger the wheels, the easier you're going to deal with all of the elements and going fast, really. But with larger wheels, you can still get a long frame and have four wheels and have four very big wheels actually, and go fast and do really well. So I really think that it depends on you. You just need to try both setups and then decide for yourself which one you personally enjoy more. So the next question comes from Marloes van den Bosch. Marloes says, hey, so I play roller derby, and because we learn to fall on our knees, I'm very reliant on my pads, but I'd like to skate without them. Is it possible to learn to fall differently while city or park skating than when playing roller derby? Marloes, that is, I think, a great question. It's one that we don't touch on enough. I think that wearing pads is important, yes, but relying on your pads alone and learning how to fall, assuming that you're not wearing your pads, is also extremely important. It's a very important skill to develop. And the reason why I say that is because if you ever decide to skate without your pads for whatever reason, because many of us don't use pads, and it's just a reality. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it happens, and some people feel like they can't be bothered to wear pads. And I think that if you're one of those people, or you want to learn to not be completely dependent on your pads, then yes, you need to seek out learning falling. Everyone needs to seek out learning falling techniques that do not involve the pads. And the reason why I say this is I have talked to tons of skaters. I mean, I can't express how many skaters I've talked to that say, oh, well, I went skating without my pads, and I tripped, and I was falling, and I instinctively went down to my knees because I'm always wearing pads, and my knees are always protected, and I busted my knee. In fact, I just talked to a skater on the phone not long ago that I'm sort of getting newly networked with, who injured himself that very same way for that same reason, and he shattered his kneecap, and he's going through physical therapy now in order to get healed. And luckily it wasn't bad enough that he needed surgery, so I hope that he recovers well. And in the future, I think that it's best for us to learn to fall without pads. So to answer your question, yes, it is possible to learn to fall differently. And if you have to fall on your pads whenever you're playing roller derby, which I understand roller derby players have to fall small on the track, and so they do kind of like this turtle shell fall where they fall on their knees and elbows and then cram up really tight. If you have to learn to fall that way and then you want to learn to fall without your pads, then what you need to do is practice falling in a controlled environment without your pads. so that you will develop muscle memory for your different situations, right? And if you learn to fall without your pads in situations where you're not going to have them, or where falling on your knees is not ideal, then your muscle memory will default to that at the right point in time eventually. But you have to train it. You can't just learn the fall and then go on about your business and never practice falling in those situations, because then you're not going to develop that muscle memory and that brain memory that in the heat of the moment, this is what I need to be doing. So yes, practice your falls and get good at falling, because we all know that if there's one thing guaranteed about skating, is that we are all going to fall, and it never goes away. We never stop falling, no matter how good we get. In fact, sometimes the better we get, the more we fall, because we are pushing our boundaries. All right, so the next question comes from Krim, C-R-I-M, and Krim says, I'm wondering, is there any literature or videos you would recommend? A casual search shows very little outside of one slalom book and some aggressive inline videos. You seem to have a very well-rounded approach, and I assume you might have already done something like this, as in you might have already gone through various other disciplines: hockey, ice skating, slalom, aggressive, etc. Absolutely, yes, Krim. I do have something that I want to recommend to you. I stumbled upon a book years and years ago that was built for ice hockey. It's called Power Skating, and the author is Laura Stamm. That's S-T-A-M-M. And in this book, Laura Stamm breaks down how to learn the disciplined style of skating that goes along with playing hockey. That is not to say that hockey skating is the foundation for all skating, but no matter what style of skating we're doing, right, we all have to abide by the same rules of physics for the most part. And so getting a book that is, or a video that is very well laid out from a technical standpoint, is extremely important. And in the 30 years that I've been skating, I think that this book has the best wealth of knowledge that I've ever come across. In fact, I'd been skating about 20 years when I ran across it, and within 2 to 3 years after reading it, I had doubled my abilities, because it changed the foundation of the way that I think about skating. And I sought out to learn this exact style that Stamm was pushing in her book. And she also has videos, by the way, and teaches workshops. I've never been to her workshops, but there are workshops in different places in the US that are taught by Laura Stamm certified instructors that teach her system of skating. And if you look up Laura Stamm on YouTube, you'll find some of these instructional videos that they break down, and I mean to the letter, some of the most minute details when it comes to body posture and where you need to be placing your feet, what position your feet need to be in. And if you're a very technically minded person and you're looking to increase your ability, then I highly, highly recommend looking up Power Skating by Laura Stamm on Amazon or something, and getting a copy of this book and watching some of these YouTube videos. It's been just paramount to my skating ability personally. So that's my recommendation. The next question. Now this question is also from Take It or Leave It 304. How has the move been? Well, take it or leave it. I assume that you're talking about my move to Dallas. The move was great until we fell into a global health crisis that stuck us all at home. And now I'm back in my hometown because that's where my job is. And I have to have access to my job at least a couple times a week. I got worried that they would shut down travel between different counties or cities or whatever. And so I came to stay with my girlfriend's parents so that I can be close to my job in case the laws start becoming more restrictive and it gets harder for me to travel. Once all of this is over, I'm going to go back to my life and assume, everything that I was doing, or resume rather, everything that I was doing. So the move has been great. I've met tons of new people and have really, really enjoyed my life in Dallas so far. I'm really looking forward to continuing things and making more connections, finding more places to skate, meeting more people in the skating industry, and just having loads of places to film and grow this channel and be involved in the skating community there. And so the last question comes from the person who motivated me to make this video in the first place, the Aussie Inline Skater. Aussie Inline Skater says, what motivated you to give inline skating a go? Oh man. Okay, well, like I said, I was heavy into quad skating up until high school, and my first experience with inline skating, a buddy of mine had a pair of rollerblades, and it wasn't rollerblade brand. It was inline skates. They were cheap from like Walmart or Target or something, and they had a brake on them. They were all plastic, and we happened to wear the same size skate, and he had never seen me skate before, and he was like, "Hey man, you want to give these a go? I'll let you try them out and show me what you can do." And I was like, "Well, I've never used those in my life." So I put them on, and lo and behold, I got used to them fairly quickly, and I soon figured out that I could jump over things in them easier, and they rolled out in the street a lot easier than quad skates did, and I'd never really skated outside of a rink at that point in time. So I was like, wow, this is so cool. This is such a new experience. I think I'm gonna get a pair of these. And I went to Target and bought a cheap pair of inlines because I didn't know anything about inlines back then. And I just went through kind of like a phase where I was, jumping down staircases and, skating anywhere that I could outside, like school parking lots and stuff like that. And then I got heavier into skateboarding for a little while, and I just I let that go and never really thought about those inlines. In fact, I don't even know what happened to them. But I went back to quad skating for a while, and the scene in my hometown had changed so much, and it had kind of died. And so I just was like, you know what, I'm just going to take a break, and I'm going to go on about my business. And, skating was something I had always done, so I just didn't really realize how important it was going to become in my life at that time. So I took a break, and I backed away from skating, and, I went to school, and like I said, I dabbled in ice skating a little bit, but I didn't get real heavy into it yet. And then one day I was riding a motorcycle, and this was in February of 2014. I was riding a motorcycle and a guy pulled out in front of me and I crashed my bike, and I woke up in the ambulance and I had, broken my arm and my wrist, and I had some pelvic injuries which were pretty gruesome, and I laid in bed for probably 3 months at that point, just in agony, recovering. And I had this tablet, I was watching YouTube videos, and somehow, I don't remember how, but somehow I ran across Bill Stoppard's channel. And he, back then his channel was called Pinto Pony Productions, and Bill Stoppard was, he was so small at the time. He might have had, I don't know, 5 or 10, maybe 10,000 subscribers, if that. So, he was easily as small of a channel as I am now. And I was watching what he was doing, and it was so fascinating. I'd never seen anybody, pick up a selfie stick or a hockey stick and strap a camera to it and just run through the city and have the best time ever. And he had all these vlogs that he was doing, and he was just really involved in inline skating. And I thought to myself, after, binge watching his videos, I thought to myself, like, man, I've got to do that. I've got to get up when I recover from this. I've got to get up and get a pair of inline skates, and I've got to get back into skating and learn a new skill. And I can't even express, how blown away I was by what Bill Stoppard was doing. So when I recovered, I got my hands on a pair of Seba FRX because they hadn't split into FR skates yet. So at the time, Seba was their umbrella brand for every line of skates that they made. So I got a pair of Seba FRX skates, and every single day I was watching inline skate channels and hockey channels, ice skating channels, and that's where I ran across Laura Stam and read some of her literature, and I was just enamored with inline skating at that time. And really, that's the story of how I got into inline skating, and the rest is history. I ended up becoming obviously so infatuated with the fact that I wanted to know how to do every style of skating that there was that I could touch, and after I realized that oh my gosh, I'm actually getting pretty good at these different styles, but all of these people I see skating, they only think of skating through their one medium. How can I inspire them to get more and more involved in different types of skating so that they can discover other styles of skating, just like I eventually discovered how much I love inline skating. So that's when I started Deez Skates, and again, like I say, the rest is history. So that's really all I have to say today. I want to thank each and every one of you for showing support. If you've stuck around this long and listened to my babbling, thank you so much for checking out my video, listening to what I have to say. I hope that you got some sort of value from this video, and I hope that you get value from my channel, that you explore skating in a way that you never have before, and you learn something, whatever it is. It's important that we all continue learning, continue skating, continue growing, and make sure to subscribe so that you can pick up on all the tutorials that I'm going to release in the future and all the skating content that I have coming for you, my favorite people, the viewers. Thank you so much for coming, and I will see you the next time I lace up.